Welcome to the Cowbell Kingdom Road Reaction Postgame Show. I am James Ham, where the Sacramento Kings have fallen again, this time to the Orlando Magic in Orlando by a final of 119 to 114. This is a game that the Sacramento Kings can't afford to lose, not if they hope to push for 30-plus wins. Not a very good performance to start. They came back late, but overall they did not have enough in them to pull this one out. Again, I am James Ham. Joining me, as always, Mr. Rui Thomas. Say hello, Rui.
Hello.
Hello. All right, Rui, what happened here in this game? Why don't you just give us in a nutshell what happened late in this game that didn't allow the Sacramento Kings to pull this one out?
Well, I mean, the Kings were climbing from behind the entire game. They allowed the Magic to start off, shoot 7 for 8 from the floor, no turnovers. The Kings, for the second game in a row, started attacking the paint relentlessly, but the Magic, they pushed back and they started pounding the paint as well. 14 of their first 21 points were in the paint, despite being in foul trouble because Cousins was a wrecking ball down there. Got Dwayne Dedman and Kyle O'Quinn in foul trouble early, which forced Andrew Nicholson, who's really more of a forward, to cover Cousins and get whipped by him. Then the Kings in the second quarter, they allowed Victor Oladipo to go off. Victor actually had 13 points in the first quarter, finishes the half with 19 points, and the Magic finished the half shooting, I believe, 65%, which is completely unacceptable. And if you want to win on the road, you can't allow any basketball team to shoot that high. The Kings started getting things going in the third, because Rudy Gay, he kept his good game going. He had 20 points in the first half, dropped in 10 in the third half, and Ray McCallum added 7. But then, in the fourth quarter, the defense again let the Kings down, and the offense let them down. The Kings only shot 38.9% in the fourth, but the baskets they made, they were big ones, 4 of 6 threes, and 10 of 12 free throws. But big blunders down the end. The Kings only had 14 turnovers tonight, but the turnovers that they had were very untimely, including the very last turnover of the game when they had an opportunity to maybe bring the ball up and heave a half-court shot.
Yeah, that last second thing where Andre Miller just, like, I don't know, inadvertently threw the ball off somebody's hands and wasted the last possession of the game. This was an interesting game. Rudy Gay has like a monster night. He finishes with 39 points on 16 and 26 shooting. He adds three assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. I think he had 8 rebounds, but he also had 5 turnovers, and he had the biggest gaffe of the game. The Kings had taken a lead, just over 30 seconds left in this game. They had taken a 2-point lead over Orlando, and Rudy just decided to forget to play defense on a possession, and Victor Oladipo got a ball. He went to the right elbow and found Tobias Harris in the corner for a wide open 3, which gave Orlando the 1-point lead and really took the wind out of the Kings' sails. It was just unexplainable, inexplicable. I don't know how else to say it. It was horrible. And it cost the Kings the game, really, because that was sort of the nail in the coffin. That's what switched things around. Now, the Kings had other opportunities to win this game. They went cold for almost 3.5 minutes in the fourth quarter and still had enough in the tank to come back and make it close late. I know there was a point where Omri Caspi, who finishes with 12 points and 4 rebounds off the bench, he got fouled on a 3-pointer late in the game and hit all 3 of his free throw attempts to give the Kings 1-point lead. A good showing by Omri, who's not typically a great free throw shooter. He rushes all of his free throws, and tonight he was on. I think that's one of the bigger disparities in this game. DeMarcus Cousins, he finishes with 29 points and 12 rebounds, 3 blocks. He has a good line. 9 of 18 from the field. But DeMarcus goes 11 of 14 from the line. The Orlando Magic as a team went 10 of 12 from the line. And so while I would like to point out that there were a lot of moving screens on the Orlando Magic that just weren't even close to quality screens. They should have been called again and again and again. The Kings clearly had some sort of angle here where they went to the free throw line a whole lot more than the Orlando Magic. What was it that you saw out of Cousins and Gay tonight that made things look so easy because they both had huge nights?
Well, Cousins, he in the first quarter he had all those guys in foul trouble. He just, he tacked without abandon. He didn't take many jump shots in this game, maybe one or two mid-range jump shots. He definitely passed up a lot of open looks. So, he knew that the Magic were short-handed in the front court because Nikola Vucevic, he was a late scratch with a sore ankle, and he got those matchups. He abused Kyle O'Quinn, he abused Nicholson, but again, he missed shots down the stretch that the Kings needed, including a basket in the final seconds, or not in the final seconds, in the last minute of the game. But as far as offense, he dominated. He dominated the glass for sure. Rudy Gay, I'm sure he was relieved, 2 nights ago after being covered by Kawhi Leonard and being harassed by him. He was playing a much less athletic, but still athletic forward in Tobias Harris, and he was able to attack Harris. Gay had a great play on Harris, where Harris pulled up for a jumper, and Gay, I don't think the ball even left Harris's hand because the block was, the timing was perfect. Both of them were really assertive, and they scored more than half the Kings' points in the first half. But that's not going to get it down the road either.
Yeah, it's not going to get it done on the road. I mean, that's sort of the problem that the Kings had tonight. Outside of the big two, the Kings got very little production out of anyone else. We talked about Caspi and his 12 points. Ray McCallum had 13 points, 2 assists on, I think it was 4 of 10 shooting. Stauskas actually came in and gave him a good 14 minutes. Point out that George Karl is finding a way to quietly sneak Nick Stauskas back in the game and get him in chances to succeed, getting him opportunities to hit wide open shots, getting him one-on-one against guys that maybe he can beat. So a little bit of sneaky stuff there. But Ben McLemore, 0 of 5 from the field, goes for 0 points. Not only that, but he got dominated by Victor Oladipo, and I know that that's not something that Ben's gonna be real happy about. They come from the same draft class. Oladipo went higher than McLemore, even though it was rumored that McLemore would go in the top 2 or 3 of that draft early on. Oladipo tonight, 32 points, 10 assists, 5 steals. He was just absolutely spectacular. And for that matter, during draft season, we got to watch that insider video where Grantland went inside with the Sacramento Kings, and you get to see Vivek say, Stauskas or Payton, and they go with Stauskas, and realistically, you should have gone with Payton. Elfrid Payton is a really, really good young player. Tonight, he had 10 points and 12 assists. He played 42 minutes. What I like about Elfrid Payton is he has an ability to guard just about anyone. He is such a big, strong, athletic guy. And if you could envision a starting backcourt long-term of Elfrid Payton and Ben McLemore, I think the Kings would have had something. But again, now we're looking back, saying could have, should have, could have, would have, which we've said just about every year for the last, 8 or 9 years with Sacramento Kings draft picks. So I'm pointing out this too. This is a game of really bad matchups for the Sacramento Kings. Oladipo is such a quick guard. He is quicker than Ben McLemore. Elfrid Payton is such a strong, big guard. He's a tough matchup for Ray McCallum or for Andre Miller. You have Channing Frye, who, of course, he can't guard DeMarcus Cousins in the post at all, but he goes outside and just bombs away. He had 22 points and 10 rebounds tonight. He was 7 of 11 from the field, 6 of 9 from behind the arc, and just absolutely killed the Kings. This is a team that the Kings don't match up well against, even though they're not very good and they're young and they're inexperienced and they've got a new head coach. Still, I think this is a game that we can all agree the Sacramento Kings on paper should have won, even though they've only got one more win than the Orlando Magic at this point. But I think the Kings are a better team than the Magic, and it just didn't go right tonight. Is that something you would agree with?
Oh yeah, I mean the Magic, they're definitely a team in transition. They have a couple building blocks, like you mentioned, with their backcourt and Vucevic, but they're struggling badly in the East, right? They fired Jock Vaughn a little over a week ago. Yeah, the Kings, they're expected to win this game. They should have won this game, but so many mistakes, especially that lousy perimeter defense, because the Kings just seem to step slow to everything tonight. Work to the Magic favor, but you have to get the Magic credit because they do have good shooters, and they were all hot tonight. We saw Ben Gordon dominate in the first half, and you mentioned Fry. Fry was stellar tonight, and Oladipo found his shot. The Kings clawed back, but they only have themselves to blame for this one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They only had themselves to blame. This is one of those games where you have to get. I mean, on an 8-game road trip, it's the first night of a back-to-back. Tomorrow you've got Miami in Miami. You could beat Miami. I think the Kings have the firepower to beat the Miami Heat, but this would have been a nice way to go 2-1 on the trip to sort of get you off to a quick start on the trip. Now you're going to be fighting and clawing to get 3 wins. If you're lucky, I think getting 4 wins is kind of out of the question at this point. So, all right, let's get to our 3 keys to the game. Coaching carousel. Both of these teams have done some crazy things this season. You mentioned Jacques Vaughn getting fired. We all know about the Michael Malone to Tyrone Corbin to George Karl situation in Sacramento. Since taking over the Orlando Magic, Borrego is 5-6 now, and he's actually doing all right. And he's hanging tough, and they're definitely playing better defense under him. And George Karl is 3-5, but again, no DeMarcus Cousins for 2 of those games. The Kings don't win without DeMarcus. And it's been a tougher road for George Karl than I think he thought. So why don't you tell me a little bit about this coaching carousel and what your thoughts are on this new coach for the Orlando Magic?
Okay, well, as a proper send off to Jock Vaughn, we have to say that he was, I believe he was set up to fail because he had to deal with the Magic post Howard and post Van Gundy. He was hired probably because of his because he was part of the Popovich coaching tree, which I'm sure the Magic thought could help. But he only lasted 2.5 years with the Magic. Last place finishes in their division every time, and when you consider they're in the East, it's really bad. I mean, I think the most wins he had in a season was 23. Which is pretty embarrassing. So, Borrego's breathing.
You got to try to only win 23 games in the East.
Yeah. So, Borrego, he's holding these guys accountable, and he's really brought on like a defensive emphasis. He plugged, Dwayne Dedman into the starting lineup recently at power forward, and he's put O'Quinn, who's really more of a offensive guy, back in the doghouse. So the Magic are definitely, they have more pep in their step. Obviously, Karl, has saved the Kings. So good things moving forward for both these teams.
All right, so let's get to our second key of the game. Our second key of the game was second chances, second chance points, second chance overall. The Kings actually did a really nice job on the offensive glass tonight. They out-rebounded the Orlando Magic 19-8 on the offensive boards. They out-rebounded Orlando overall 43-37. Why don't you take this one, Rui?
Okay, the Kings absolutely dominated the Magic on the offensive glass tonight, and I think a lot of that had to do with DeMarcus playing and Vucevic not playing, because Vucevic averages nearly 3.5 offensive rebounds a game. The Kings, they had 14 offensive rebounds in the first half and only 9 defensive rebounds, and I think the Magic only had 12 rebounds total, or 13. But the Kings slowed down late. I believe they only had 1 offensive rebound in the fourth quarter, which they really needed. But they did score 21 second chance points, which helped them get back. We saw the Kings, again crashing the paint to get those second chance opportunities. But at the very end of the game, when DeMarcus misses that the layup when he's being triple teamed, which would have tied the game, I believe. That was when they needed it the most.
Yeah, and I'll point this out too. It's you can get some offensive rebounds when you're missing shots. It's really tough to get defensive rebounds when you're allowing your opponent to shoot 60% in the first half, something like that. So the Kings did they had plenty of opportunities in that first half on their own end, but on the other end, they did not have many opportunities. So, all right, let's get to our third key of the game: history in the making. And God bless Jason Thompson. He is now the all-time leader in games played in Sacramento era Kings history. 519 games played. He passes Peja Stojakovic, the great Peja Stojakovic, as the all-time leader in games played. A big night for Jason Thompson. He doesn't have a huge production night. He has 5 points and 5 rebounds in 24 minutes. This just is a bad matchup for him. Again, Channing Frye and some guys who really they were running 4 shooters and a banger out there all night long. So it's not exactly the best style of play to run Jason Thompson out there. But a big night for Jason Thompson. I mean, this is something that's been brewing for a while. We put out an interview that we did with Jason Thompson yesterday, and it wasn't exactly a glowing thing that Jason Thompson had to say about the Sacramento Kings and sort of the journey that he's been through here in Sacramento. But it's understandable. I mean, the poor guy has played for 7 coaches in 7 years. He's played with nearly 80 players in that time. He's just, he's seen coaching changes, ownership changes, management changes, 3 relocation attempts, 3 or 4 or 5. I don't know how many you want to tuck in there. All of these different, but 2 major relocation attempts. He's seen games that he thought was the last time the Sacramento Kings would ever play in Sacramento. And now he's, almost 29 years old, and I don't think he's too happy that when he looks back at his career that he was kind of bamboozled by a franchise that had instability, by coaches that were always asking for something different from him, never really able to get a stride with this team, sort of in a rhythm as a player. He's a guy who's always durable. He always plays. He always gives you his all. He's a lunch pail guy, but at the same time, he's also a guy who averaged, close to a double-double as a rookie, and he thought that that's kind of the player he would be. And, when you get replaced every year and when you're starting job every year and you watch all of these other guys come and go and you're still here in Sacramento, it's kind of an emotional thing. And, kudos Jason Thompson for sticking it out, for being a lunch pail guy and playing all these games in Sacramento. But I definitely think that, if he can find a new home this summer, he could use a fresh start. And hopefully that will happen for him, because I know it's something he's kind of wished for a while. So, Rui, what is your favorite Jason Thompson moment? Do you have one that sticks out to you?
I guess every time. Well, there was a game earlier this year when he put up 22 points and 21 rebounds against the Clippers. I think that was quite spectacular. Jason, he's a great guy. He has a great heart. Pretty humble dude. Tonight, he didn't really get to explode because the Kings mainly used him as a backup center. We saw him get kicked in the face by DeMarcus when DeMarcus tripped over him early in the first quarter, which wasn't exactly the best way to celebrate his 519th game. And he was invisible in the fourth quarter. But yeah, Jason, he's been playing through the dark ages of this Kings era, and he hasn't complained publicly once. He's you got to feel bad for him. You mentioned all those coaches that he's had to deal with, all the teammates that have come through the locker room. When he was drafted here, people thought he could resemble something like Chris Webber, and he's obviously far from that. So yeah, I'm interested to see what's in store for Thompson in the future. But yeah, looking back on his the first 7 years of his career, a lot of losing.
Yeah, a lot of losing. Yeah, you mentioned the coaches, and I asked him one time. I'm like, all right, let's have a race. Like, how many coaches have you played for? He's like, well, 6, but it was early in the season. He goes, and that means nothing. The season's not over yet. I might get to 7 before the season's over. I'm like, all right, who do you got? And he's like, Reggie Theus, Kenny Nat, Paul Westphal, Keith Smart, Michael Malone, Tyrone Corbin, George Karl now. 7 guys in the matter of 7 years. It's just really tough. It's tough because everyone wants something different from you. I'm gonna say this. The one good thing about Jason Thompson, I never saw him as the next Chris Webber, but I did see him as a guy who could be very similar to what Brian Grant brought for years, not just to the Kings, but to other franchises, Portland, Miami. While he hasn't quite achieved some, the sort of the 14 and 8, 14 and 9, 14 and 10 type numbers that I thought he could easily do. What he did do is do a lot of the same things that Brian Grant has done off the court. And Jason Thompson is an incredible community guy. He does a ton of work during the summer doing camps for kids. It's not just, pizzas and fun and craziness. He also teaches kids about nutrition and about treating your body right. He does a lot of donations for those camps where he's bringing in most of these kids for free or sponsoring them, so they're actually coming in and kids that normally wouldn't get to go to a basketball camp. He's doing a lot of these things both here and near Rider University, if I'm not mistaken. He's a good person, and he's got good parents. And he, again, 5 years of covering Jason Thompson. I don't have a bad thing to say about the guy. He hasn't been in a great situation. Again, he's had to see DeMarcus Cousins grow up. And that's not always been the easiest thing. I mean, I think everyone could acknowledge that. 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old DeMarcus Cousins was not easy to deal with. I'm not sure that 23, 24-year-old DeMarcus Cousins is that easy to deal with either. But Jason Thompson has been here through thick and thin with Cousins. And, I wish nothing but the best for him, especially this summer. Hopefully the Kings can kind of find somewhere good for him to go, or really find a position for him here that works in George Karl's system. I'm just not quite sure that this is the right system for him. All right, Rui, let's get to our MVP really quick because I think we're going to have the same exact MVP. Who do you got?
I don't think so actually, because I'm going with the dark horse on the Magic. Because there are like 3 MVPs in the Magic tonight. I want to go with Channing Frye because he had a game for the ages. 22 points on 7-11 shooting, 6 of 9 from behind the arc, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks, a steal, and only 1 turnover. He was challenged tonight. There were points when, because of the foul trouble in the front court, he had to cover DeMarcus, and DeMarcus backed him down and destroyed him. But he held strong on the offensive end. The Kings couldn't stay with him. His shot looked great, and he hit 2 big free throws with 6 seconds left to make it a 4-point game. So Channing Frye, the definition of a finesse stretch 4, but played up to his potential tonight.
Boy, you go with the guy that everyone in Sacramento hates after his comments a couple of years ago about never wanting to play for that team. Interesting. I'm going to go with Victor Oladipo because, my goodness, talk about an incredible second-year player. He's coming off a huge performance in his previous game against the Suns. I think he scored, 39 points in his previous game tonight, 32 and 10 with 5 steals, and he had 14 to 24 shooting. He ran this offense like to a T. He was just masterful, just so much fun to watch, and he's so athletic. I don't even know who to really compare him to. Maybe maybe a young Eric Gordon. He kind of looks a little bit like a young Eric Gordon before Eric Gordon started having knee trouble and trouble with carrying whether he played basketball or not, which has always been it's been an issue with him. But young Eric Gordon on the Clippers. That's what I'm thinking of. I just think he's got a really a ton of talent, and if they can keep putting more and more shooters around him, I think he's going to be absolutely phenomenal. If they can get Elfrid Payton to a point where he can be a great sort of assist man. Elfrid Payton again has a little bit of Rajon Rondo in him. That sort of hardcore game where he does a lot of different things, plays really stout defense, rebounds, does a lot of things. I don't know. I think this is going to be a really, really interesting team to watch for a long time. I've always liked Tobias Harris. Aaron Gordon is the guy who's going to take him a little while to figure out the NBA game, but he's coming on. And Vucevic, I like Vucevic's game too. I don't know that he's big enough. They probably need a big guy to play some minutes at the power forward position to sort of help Vucevic out. But this Orlando Magic team, they're an up-and-comer. You can see them in 2 or 3 years being really, really good. They got to find a coach that's they can take them to that next level. But yeah, this is a team that's not bad, and Victor Oladipo is a very, very solid young player. All right, Rui. Well, do you have any final thoughts on tonight's game? What do you got for me? Final thoughts.
The Kings need to look at the tape, again, and realize that again they shot themselves in the feet repeatedly. Got to clean up that perimeter defense. Got to fight through screens. And cut down the boneheaded mistakes. 14 turnovers tonight was a start, but you can't allow you can't allow a team like the Magic to shoot 72% in a quarter, like the first quarter. You just can't do that.
You can't allow the Orlando Magic team to beat you. I mean, I think that's what it really comes down to. If you want to be a winner, if you want to, profess to being a team that's on the rise, this is a game where you got to get. They were missing their big man, and if they're not going to play at full strength, then you've got your full strength outside of Darren Collison. I mean, you got to win this game. You got to win this game. I'll also point this out too. One of my parting shots. Ray McCallum has continuously proven that he's an NBA player, and I can't. You can't be more happy for him. The Kings have some tough decisions this offseason. I know Andre Miller wants to come back, and I think they would love to have Andre Miller back. But I just can't imagine not keeping Ray McCallum around for a third year on a rookie scale deal, a second-round pick deal where he's making like less than $1 million. This kid, he can do a lot of things. I mean, tonight you tried him in the backcourt with Andre Miller just to slow down Oladipo, and I think it helped a little bit late in this game. I don't know. That's one of my takeaways from this game. All right. Well, we will be back. We'll be back tomorrow, where the Sacramento Kings take on Hassan Whiteside and the Miami Heat. Last time the Kings played against Hassan, I think he had a rebound, and that's about it. DeMarcus Cousins owned him, and I assume the same thing is going to happen again, although Hassan has been pretty incredible. So if you get a big game out of Hassan Whiteside and he can embarrass DeMarcus Cousins and Jason Thompson, he would love nothing more than to do that. So we will be back tomorrow night for another edition of the Cowbell Kingdom Road Reaction Postgame Show. I am James Ham. Say goodnight, Rui.
Good night.
He is Rui Thomas. We'll see you tomorrow night.